He was there every morning before anyone else, sweeping the hallways, wiping the windows, mopping the tiled floors until they shone like glass. He never spoke, never looked anyone in the eye, just nodded, moved, cleaned. The students didn't know his name. Most of the teachers didn't either. They called him the janitor, or worse, the ghost with a mop. He wore the same faded navy coveralls every day, the fabric worn thin at the knees, heavy black boots, a gray cap pulled low, and always that old canvas utility belt, keys, gloves, a folded rag tucked in the side. He walked like a man with no hurry left in his life. To the kids, he was invisible, or a punchline, someone to step around, someone to laugh at. They joked about the way he walked, the way he limped slightly on his left leg. Some said he was a failed soldier. Others said he had been in jail. No one really knew, because no one ever asked. Every Monday, a group of boys left muddy shoe prints across the freshly waxed entrance. They called it art. Every Friday, one girl would drop her smoothie on purpose in front of his mop. They laughed when he sighed. They watched to see if he would snap. But he never did. He just looked at the mess and cleaned it. One teacher once asked, "Do you ever get tired of this?" He didn't answer, just nodded, then kept mopping. He was a man of few words. Some thought that made him dull. Others thought it made him dumb. But in truth, silence was his strength. His name was Thomas Blake. But no one at Ridgeway High knew that, not even the principal. To them, he was just the janitor, a background figure in their well-lit world. What they didn't know is that Thomas had once commanded a unit of 12 men in Afghanistan. What they didn't know is that he'd served 18 years in the military, through sandstorms, gunfire, hostage extractions, and more funerals than he could count. They didn't know about the scars under his sleeves, or the burn on his left shoulder from a night mission that went wrong, or the metal locked in a drawer at his one-bedroom apartment, the one he never talked about. They didn't know because he didn't want them to. He had retired early, quietly, and taken this job at a local high school, not for the paycheck, but for the silence. He liked the smell of floor wax, the feel of warm sunlight on clean windows, the rhythm of a mop on tile. After years of chaos, this was his peace. But peace doesn't protect you from cruelty. Cruelty comes from boredom, from ignorance, from young people who've never learned to look past a uniform, even a janitor's. One morning, Thomas found a note taped to his mop cart. "Do you clean toilets with your tongue too?" It wasn't the words that bothered him. It was the handwriting. He recognized it. 10th grader, Jason, same kid who laughed the loudest when the smoothie hit the floor. Thomas didn't report it, didn't respond. He just folded the note, placed it in his pocket, and kept cleaning. That same week, someone knocked over a whole trash bin in the cafeteria, on purpose. The bag split open, half-eaten sandwiches, milk cartons, gum. As he cleaned it, 2 students stood nearby, recording him on their phones. They whispered jokes, zoomed in on his face. He didn't look at them, didn't say a word, just cleaned, like always. But something was changing. Not in him, in the school. There had been rumors of fights near the west parking lot, graffiti on locker doors, lockers that had been broken into but not reported. And then one morning, Thomas saw something strange. A backpack, unattended, stuffed under the stairs near the gym. Too big, too tight. He paused, felt that old instinct stir, the one that had saved his life more than once. He stepped closer, didn't touch it, just looked, then walked away, straight to the main office. He didn't panic, didn't shout, just handed the vice principal a slip of paper. "Unattended bag under stairwell by gym. Call police, do not approach." That was all it said. The vice principal raised an eyebrow. "Why? What's in it?" Thomas just said, "Call them," then walked out. Within 20 minutes, the building was evacuated. Within 40, the bomb squad had arrived. Inside the backpack, wiring, plastic explosives, a crude remote detonator. Not a prank, not a project, a real bomb. The news never reached the students in full. It was reported as a security concern. School was closed for 3 days, but the staff knew. The local police knew. And from that day on, everyone knew something else. The janitor had saved them. After the bomb was discovered, everything changed. But no one talked about it. The school returned to its normal rhythm. Bells rang, students shuffled between classes. Laughter returned to the hallways, but something had shifted. They didn't know exactly what Thomas had done, only that he had done something. Something serious. Something important. The news didn't publish his name. No official statement was made. But word traveled fast. Teachers whispered in break rooms. Parents speculated on Facebook. Students who used to mock him now stared from a distance. They watched how he walked, how he noticed things, how he paused near corners, glanced at exits, scanned rooms without a word. He was still the janitor, still cleaning the same floors, still arriving before sunrise. But now, the air around him felt different. Jason, the student who'd left the cruel note, stopped laughing when he passed Thomas in the hallway. He didn't apologize, didn't even make eye contact. He just walked faster. Other students began to lower their voices when he passed. Some moved out of his way. A few nodded. He never nodded back. Not out of anger, but because he didn't need to. Thomas didn't want fame, didn't want thanks. He didn't feel like a hero. To him, noticing that bag wasn't special. It was instinct, built from years of scanning rooftops, vehicles, windows, looking for what didn't belong. He remembered one day in Kandahar, a fruit cart on the corner, a child sitting too still, a truck engine running with no driver in sight. He saw what others missed. Then, too, that time lives were lost. This time they weren't. And that was enough. But the students, they were curious. One day, a senior named Marcus stayed after school. He approached Thomas while he was emptying a trash bin. "Sir," Marcus said awkwardly, "can I ask you something?" Thomas looked at him, didn't speak, just waited. "Is it true?" the boy asked. "About the bag? The bomb?" Thomas didn't answer directly. He just said, "You should always report what doesn't belong." Then he walked away. That was enough. For Marcus, it was more than enough. The story spread again, this time stronger. "Dude, he used to be, like, military or something. I heard he defused it himself. My mom said he saved the whole school." The stories became myths. Some true, most not. But no one laughed anymore. And then came the locker incident. It was a Tuesday morning, 7:05 a.m. The school was nearly empty. Thomas was mopping near the science wing when he heard a strange noise, a soft metallic click followed by silence. He froze, listened. Again, click, slide. He moved toward the lockers, carefully. Two boys, senior year, one crouched down, using something on a locker lock. The other watched nervously. Thomas said nothing, just stepped into view. The boys jumped. One dropped the tool. It clattered loudly. They tried to run. He didn't stop them, just picked up the lockpick, slid it into his utility pouch and kept cleaning. Later that day, both boys were called to the office. They didn't return for a week. No one asked how they got caught. No one had to. The story reinforced itself. The janitor saw everything and told no one. Some began to call him Ghost. Not to his face, but the name stuck. Ghost cleaned the hall again. Ghost was here before the lights came on. Don't mess around. Ghost is always watching. It wasn't fear, it was respect, the quiet kind. The staff, too, began to shift. Miss Carter, the art teacher who used to ignore him, now nodded each morning. Coach Daniels, who once complained about the way Thomas stored mops, now asked if he needed supplies. Even the principal, Mr. Avery, called him by name. "Good morning, Mr. Blake." That was new. Thomas just nodded, as he always had. But the change was noted. He was no longer invisible. One Friday, after everyone had gone home, Thomas stayed late. The school was quiet, empty. He stood alone in the janitor's room, a small concrete space with shelves of cleaning chemicals, a sink, an old metal cabinet in the corner. From that cabinet, he pulled a locked box, opened it. Inside, a folded American flag. Two medals, one silver, one bronze. A photo, torn at the edges, of 12 men in dusty camouflage. And beneath them, a name tag, Sergeant T. Blake. He looked at it for a long time, then closed the box, locked it, returned it to the cabinet, turned off the light, and left. The past didn't define him, but it hadn't left him either. And as much as he wanted peace, he understood this. Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer. It was a Wednesday, cloudy, heavy with the kind of tension that doesn't have a name but everyone feels. The morning started like any other. Thomas unlocked the west doors, checked the boiler room, restocked the soap dispensers, swept the main corridor. The students arrived, laughing, yawning, texting, another normal day, until 11:17 a.m. That's when something felt wrong. He was pushing the mop cart through the cafeteria hallway when he noticed a girl crying quietly near her locker. He paused, watched. No one else seemed to notice. She was hunched over, trying to hide it. Her hands were shaking. Thomas approached, slowly. She didn't see him at first. When she looked up, her eyes widened. She tried to wipe her tears. He didn't say anything, just pointed to the hallway bench. She hesitated, then sat. He handed her a clean paper towel, sat across from her, without a word. After a moment, she spoke. "There's something wrong," she whispered. I think someone brought something to school, something bad." His expression didn't change, but something in his chest tightened. "What did you see?" he asked calmly. She looked down. "A bag," she said. "Behind the music room, I saw wires and a blinking light." Thomas stood up. "Did you tell anyone?" She shook her head. "I didn't know if it was real. I didn't want to get anyone in trouble." "You did the right thing," he said, then walked away, fast. His mind switched into a different mode. Muscle memory, field memory. He moved like he had a mission, because he did. The area behind the music room was mostly storage. Few students went there. It was the perfect place to hide something, or set something up. He reached the door, listened, then opened it. There it was, a backpack, different from the first one, bigger, newer, zipped shut, but too carefully placed. He didn't touch it. Instead, he backed out of the room, pulled out his old flip phone. Yes, a flip phone, one he kept for emergencies. No contacts, just one number memorized. He called it, "Ridgeway High, possible secondary device, isolate the building, initiate sweep." Then he hung up. No panic, no sirens, just action. Within 10 minutes, plain-clothed responders arrived. They didn't wear badges, didn't carry rifles, but they knew Thomas, knew his face, knew he wouldn't call unless it was real. They moved like water, silent, swift. By 11:42 a.m., the building was locked down. No one knew what was happening, only that the fire alarms weren't going off, but something serious was underway. Thomas stood by the gym exit, watching, waiting. The girl who warned him, her name was Riley, was escorted quietly to the counselor's office. The teachers were told it was a precautionary facilities issue. Students grumbled, rolled their eyes, but they stayed in place. The bag was removed. Inside, replica explosives, a fake detonation device, but well constructed, detailed enough to fool any student, and enough to trigger real fear, if discovered. Whoever placed it wanted panic, not destruction. Police found the culprit within hours. A sophomore, troubled, angry, expelled last semester, snuck back in, wore a hoodie, walked with purpose, dropped the bag, and left the grounds unnoticed. Almost. Thomas had seen him, days before. On a security camera no one ever checked. He didn't say anything yet. He simply sent the image to a contact, with the message, "Seen, same jacket, East Lot, 2 days ago." The kid was caught, charged, taken away. But again, Thomas's name wasn't in the news, not officially. Inside the school, though, everything was different now. Riley told her friends told others. She said the janitor saved the school again. He called in special forces or something. Dude used a flip phone. Who even has that? Rumors exploded, but this time, no one mocked. They leaned in. They asked questions. One teacher printed out a blurry screenshot of the security footage and pinned it in the teacher's lounge. Underneath, someone wrote, "This man sees everything." The nickname Ghost came back, louder this time, respectful. That Friday, something small happened but powerful. When Thomas entered the cafeteria for his usual midday sweep, every single student stood. No one spoke. No one clapped. They just stood. It lasted 12 seconds. He looked around, paused, then nodded once, and kept mopping. That was enough. A week after the second incident, Ridgeway High felt different. Not in a loud way, but in the subtle way that happens when people finally begin to see what they had ignored for too long. There were no more smoothie spills, no more dirty footprints at the entrance, no more mocking whispers near the lockers. Instead, students began to pick up after themselves. Teachers paused to nod when he passed. Some even said thank you. Thomas didn't react. He didn't want thanks. He just wanted peace. But peace doesn't always last. On a rainy Thursday morning, Principal Avery stopped him in the hallway. "Mr. Blake," he said gently, "would you mind joining me in my office?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You're not in trouble," the principal added quickly. "It's something else." Inside the office sat a woman in uniform. Military, not police. The patch on her shoulder, U.S. Department of Defense. She stood when he entered. "Sergeant Blake," she said, "it's been a long time." Thomas didn't speak, just nodded. "I won't take much of your time. We just want to say thank you." She handed him an envelope. Inside, a letter, official, signed, and a small pin, deep blue with silver edges, the kind not given easily. He stared at it for a moment, then closed the envelope, nodded again. That was all. She smiled, then left. Principal Avery leaned forward. "I didn't know," he said. Thomas didn't respond. I believe our students need to know who you really are." Thomas finally spoke. "They already do," then stood and left. That night, something rare happened. Thomas unlocked the janitor's closet, reached into the cabinet, opened the box. But this time, he didn't just look. He removed the contents, laid them out, the photo, the medals, the folded uniform. He looked at the name patch stitched into the chest, Sergeant T. Blake. He hadn't worn it in over a decade. That night, he did. Just once. Just to remember. Not for anyone else, just for himself. The next morning, he didn't wear it again. But he walked a little straighter. Word spread fast. Someone had seen the uniform through the supply room window. By Monday, every student in the school had heard. Now, they didn't just call him Ghost. They said something else. He was one of them. Special Forces. He saved us twice. That week, a student named Ethan approached him during lunch cleanup. "Sir," he said, "I used to think you were just, a janitor." Thomas waited. "But I get it now. It's not what you do, it's how you do it." Thomas looked at him. Then, for the first time in months, he smiled. Just a little. Soon after, the art teacher painted a mural in the back hallway. It was subtle, muted colors, a silhouette of a man with a mop. But in the shadow behind him, the figure stood taller, wearing military gear, head held high. No name, no label, just 3 words at the bottom. Respect, earned, silently. Students stopped to stare at it every day. Some took photos, others just looked. It became part of the school, like Thomas had. 1 year later, Thomas retired. No big ceremony, no goodbye speech. He just didn't show up one Monday. And on the cart where his mop usually rested, someone found a folded rag, a single note. "Keep it clean. Keep your eyes open. TB." The school kept his name on the staff directory for months, not out of error, out of respect. To this day, new students hear whispers. "Don't mess around. There used to be a janitor here who saw everything." They called him Ghost. They say he stopped something bad. Twice. No one ever saw him smile, except once. Thomas never told anyone where he went. But sometimes, early in the morning, just before sunrise, the night custodian swears he sees a man walking the track. Tall, quiet, wearing boots. Just walking, just watching, and then gone. Because some heroes don't retire, they just move on, silently.